Matura's Mandala. Okay. Bon Maharaj has this letter's come from the American government. You don't know how they
American Embassy in Delhi.
sorry, the American Embassy in Delhi. Somehow, um, I suppose they contacted, and Bon Maharaj has said, better get out of, and so you've gone with Krishnas Babaji, and you've gone to Govardhan and Barshan and all these amazing places.
No. When I got to India and got settled in Bon Maharaj, I wrote 2 letters.
Okay.
To let people know I had arrived there. One was to Prabhupada, care of San Francisco Temple, and one was to
John Peel.
John Peel.
Right.
That's the only 2 people.
Right.
I found out years later, and I'll tell you. I found out years later what happened, but it was John Peel's ex-wife who did that. They divorced after I left. Okay. They were going through a hell of a problem, because he brought her from the States, and she was she ended up killing herself. His ex-wife.
Okay.
Shirley.
What a shame.
She ended up committing suicide. So they divorced, and she was kind of like going to get even with me, because when I wrote, they got a letter from me before they divorced saying that I was okay and here's where I was. And so when they divorced, she went to America and she decided to try and get even with him by hurting me.
I see. Okay. Well, that's a very interesting
only thing that messed up her plan was Krishna and the holy name, and Prabhupada's holy name.
Well, bless.
Because Bon Maharaj told me, because I told Bon Maharaj, that I was a fugitive, and because he didn't know yet. It was a year had gone by. He didn't know what my situation was.
Okay.
But now he knew it. He totally disagreed with the Vietnam War. He totally disagreed.
Yeah.
He said I was blessed to have this problem because it drove me to the spiritual world, which is really hard to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in Vrindavan day after day, seeing that there's not a single white guy in the whole world there. I mean, people were telling me, you're the only white guy in the whole planet Earth, from the whole population of planet Earth that's in this Vrindavan. How is it possible? And at the same time, I'm being broken down in this ashram. If you want to fit into this ashram, you've got to realize that you are the lowest of the low. You got to realize that you are this complete moron. You don't know anything. And I remember telling some of my godbrothers, some of our godbrothers about that, and how I was so lucky to be in that situation where my ego was just destroyed. And they were saying, oh, man, I would never have put up with that. I would have never have tolerated that. I would have told those guys that you're not this body. We're not this body. And I said, well, they already know we're not this body. They just don't think I know.
That's hilarious. That's what's kind of fascinating about your story and why it's unique, is because you're the only one that had this perspective. Even those, like we mentioned, the other 2 that kind of came and were in the other side of, So, okay, so. I didn't have a previously formed contempt for everything and everybody, like some of our other godbrothers. I didn't go there with any contempt that I know how to do it, and you guys are a bunch of morons, and I'm on the right path, and I'm here to uplift India. I mean, I came there to save me from this flaming Maya, which is like a flaming forest fire, Devagni, Mahadevagni. I was there to get away from it because there was no way out but in. There was no... It's interesting because I've been to Kumbh Melas and I've hung out with some sadhus and talked to them, and quite a few of them, their sadhu life started with, I was married, had a child, my wife died, this happened, this lost and everything. And so life created a thing where, okay, well, life's sending me off. It's helping me. It's actually a blessing, because, it's actually, to become a sadhu, it's about renouncing the world and material things, and it will come in one way or another. Either you'll wait till old age or it will come beforehand. So
people in the West would say to me, hey, these guys are renouncing the world because they're penniless and they'd have no way to make a living. And I said, well, how come all the rich guys in India are standing in line to offer them obeisances? The richest guys in the world. I mean, the guy, I had the president of India, V.V. Giri, try to touch my feet. He was a 60-some-year-old president of the biggest democracy in the world. And just because I'm a disciple of Swami Ban, I'm there in the Rastapati Bhavan to meet him. And I don't even have a passport. I don't have any ID. Nobody asked me what my real name was. I was from Swamiban. I was in, and he tried to touch my feet. And I said, no, Your Excellency, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. He said, no, you are everything. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the religion that I had was somehow representing in whatever little capacity, but it was the religion and the fact that I had taken the position of renunciation, that in the religion of Sanatana Dharma is the highest position, because any kind of attachment to the material world is completely grotesque. I mean, to the sadhus, when a rich man would come, they don't even want to talk to the guy,
What was the reason?
I mean,
Sorry, what was the reason you were going to actually see the president at that moment? What was there any?
That was in 72, 73.
Okay.
There's a whole nother story. I actually had to go meet him twice.
Okay.
I had to meet him twice. First time I met him, I went to see. The reason was because Braj asked me. He's trying to get a grant from the University Grants Commission, the UGC, which in Delhi, because we'd already built the second floor of his university, and we've already built a school in Nandagram, and now he wanted to get a grant from the UGC, the University Grants Commission, which was controlled by a guy named Dr. Kotari, who, of all the people that you would ever want to meet, he's just a bureaucrat. But this guy was impossible to meet, And Braj couldn't get anywhere with the guy, so he asked me to go and try and meet him. So I went there, and there's no way I could meet him. So I went to see Hans Raj Gupta, the mayor, and told him that I want to meet this guy because I want to submit this request for Braj's school to get this grant for these research of students to come or whatever, the thing that they're going to do. And he said, okay, you should go meet President Giri, B.V. Giri, Venkatavaman Giri, who was the president of India. And so I'm like, I don't have a passport. I don't have any. I wasn't even thinking that. I was just like, okay, how do you address him? And I don't know how you address a president. I didn't even know that India had a president. I didn't even know who the president of America was at that time.
Right.
I had totally lost track. So I got taken in the car to Rashtrapati Bhavan and by the president, by the mayor's car. And they drove me to the gate, and this huge place, this Rashtrapati Bhavan. It used to be where the viceroys, and so they showed me a list, and it had names on it that were people that were coming that day, and I saw my name on there, Swami Lalitananda, and the whole list was printed in a printing press, and I'm looking at this because I had never seen an electric typewriter before.
Right.
I had no idea there was such a thing. And so I'm looking at this list printed in a printing press thinking, how in the world did they do that so fast, And that was me on there. So I got taken in there, and then they took me to the back, and I went back, and his secretary took me to meet him, and he was there like this, and with his white hair, and he tried to touch my feet. And I said, no, Your Excellency, I'm nothing. And he said, no, you're everything, And then we sat down, and he asked me, he asked me, what he could do for me. And he called the guy up. He called the guy up and said, listen, I got this sadhu here that he needs this stuff done, and I need you to take care of it.
Wonderful.
And then he asked me, how your health was. I said, I have ulcerative colitis and all this stuff's going on. And he put me in touch with a doctor in Gold Market. Yep. Dr. Gupta, who was a homeopathic doctor, and I had never heard of homeopathy, and he cured me of this colitis. Amazing. That was almost killing me, And then the second time I met him, I went back with Braj, and the two of us met him.
Okay.
And that's when a photograph was taken.
Okay.
Of us standing next to him, and so I stayed in touch with his secretary also. I was able to call his secretary, and so these are all people that guaranteed me for Indian citizenship. Because I was applying for Indian citizenship. The only problem was that I was who I was, but the application was being done under a false name as I entered the country on that false passport, which is now long gone. That passport, but at some point you have to notify the U.S. Embassy. And so that's when it reached a snag, and that's when I had to leave,
But that's going forward. Thank you. That's a brilliant anecdote. We're just going to go back a bit and come up to that point, because you just hinted that. So part of what you were doing, Bon Maharaj, apart from the the Bhajan Kutir and the ashram, he wanted to do something for Braj in education. He was a kind of educationist.
Right.
So there was
He wanted the Brijavasi people, he wanted the Brijavasi boys and girls who wanted a higher education in high school to be able to go to a college right there in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Without having to go out of the Dham, out of the holy Dham. So he arranged for that school to be there, and it had Hindi and Sanskrit, and it was originally called the Vaishnav Theological University. That was the original name of it. Then he changed it to the Institute of Oriental Philosophy, and it was affiliated with the University of Agra, so people could actually get BA, MA, and PhD degrees from there, and they did. And it was like, I don't know how many students were there, but it was a full university.
While you were there, and when you arrived, did that whole construction and project come about while you were there already, or had it already started, or was it something that was?
It was already started.
Oh, it was already started.
It was already existing. It was already there. It was already running.
Okay.
I used to go to the library there.
Okay.
I used to walk the library, and I had the library all to myself, and there was thousands of books. They're rare books. I mean, they had the Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was like impossible to read without crying. It was like. It was like such an emotional book that it was unbelievable. The Chaitanya Bhagavat, because it really goes into the life of Lord Chaitanya. Like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, they describe Lord Chaitanya taking sannyas and leaving his wife, just in one verse. But I mean, Chaitanya Bhagavat, this is a 2-chapter explanation that'll tear you apart out,
Well, it was written much earlier, wasn't it, by Vrindavan Das Thakur?
Yeah, Vrindavan Das.
It's
right.
the first, and Krishnadas Kaviraj always pays homage back to him for his earlier biography, which he wrote much later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's more theological and more. It's true. It's a very different mood. I've only started.
Chaitanya Charitamrita is really about the afterlife, the after sannyas life.
Concentrates in.
It really is. It's really after sannyas, and Chaitanya Bhagavat's before sannyas. Long hair versus no hair.
Yeah.
Nitya Lila versus Boma Lila.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, Lord, that I learned in Vrindavan, that there's the Boma Lila and there's the Nitya Lila.
Yeah.
And the Nitya Lila is happening eternally in the spiritual world, and the Boma Lila happens from time to time in all the different Brahmandas, and like the Boma Lila of Krishna lasted for 125 years. But the Nitya Lila of Krishna and Radha never has started and never ends.
Yeah.
So there's not a starting point or anything for it. But the Boma Lila happened in this world. And so he was telling me that the esoteric philosophy behind it is that when Krishna appeared in the Kamsa's prison, that was Avatar Krishna, and also Avatari Krishna was included, because other avatars come, they're just Avatar. But Krishna, because he's Swayam Bhagavan, you have Avatari Krishna and Avatar Krishna. So when Vasudeva was carrying baby Krishna, he was carrying Avatar Krishna, and when he was trying to cross the Yamuna, and Krishna fell into the water, and he picked him up again. He picked up Avatari Krishna. And now they're in Vrija. And then for 16 years, he was Avatari Krishna doing the same, but that Avatari Krishna includes Avatar Krishna. So he was doing two things simultaneously. He was exhibiting and enjoying his eternal pastimes, and also killing demons and things that don't happen in the spiritual world. And so when did it change back? When he, because Vrindavanam parityaja kwachinnaiva gacchati. Krishna never leaves an inch from Vrindavan. So when he was, Akrura came to take Krishna and Balaram away, that was after 16 years, and they left when they came to Akrura Kunda, and they were going to take it. That was the point where the transformation took place again, where the Avatari Krishna remained in Vrindavan with the Vrijavasis, and Avatar Krishna went on without the Avatar aspect. And that was when he took a bath and was doing his Gayatri Mantra, Akrura, and he saw that whole transformation. And that's when he came out of the water, and Balaram and Krishna asked him, "Well, did you see something? What's up?" So that was from that point on, it was Avatar Krishna carrying on those pastimes. And Avatari Krishna remained in Vraja who never leaves Vraja without ever even an inch. Kwachin means not even a little bit. Kwachin eva gacchati, not even a little bit. So he's incapable of leaving, because Avatari Krishna lives in Vrindavan, in the Nitya Lila.
But isn't it also said that he actually, in that form, when he leaves, it's in the hearts and in the separations of all those Vaishnavas, because he's living in that form, because
Oh
he's
yeah, yeah, sure.
because that's what they're internally in. When Krishna sent Uddhava to the gopis, they were all kind of. He said, if you want to know bhakti, go and watch the gopis and the residents. And he goes there and he just sees that they're there, and they're seeing Krishna and they're with Krishna, but it's all in vipralamba, all in separation. Everyone's
Yeah.
It's all very
Union and separation from a spiritual point of view is higher than anything else.
yeah,
In the material point of view, it's also true.
yeah,
But it's despicable, because that, I mean, like for instance, the feeling of not being married to Krishna, and being with him, even though you have a feeling of having a husband, that immoral thing, even though there is no husband, that feeling of doing something wrong. Actually, that's why that was there, because in the spiritual world, that's totally transcendental, But the feeling was there. But why do the gopis need to have a feeling that they have a husband? And they're going to go meet Krishna in the night, and he's instructing them to go back and don't be wrongdoers. And they're chastising him, how you've brought us here, and then now you're going to chastise us like this, and so this whole thing it just shows you that some of the things that in this material world are considered despicable, like adultery and things like that. In their spiritual world, that is there where they have their pure existence, and outside of there, they're despicable. In the spiritual world, they're pure and transcendental, because there is nobody else but Krishna. There is no other right person. There is no other husband. It's just a feeling.
Amazing.
And so, but it's a feeling. But it's a feeling that the gopis even have the name of their husbands. Like even Radharani has a husband's name. There's a name, and there's a feeling that they're doing something wrong, and that they're breaking some rules. Which is, in this world, that's actually more exciting than doing things right.
Yeah. There is
in this world,
there's a buzz about clandestine relationships. They can give an edge to something.
So in this world, that buzz is, as real as it is immoral.
Yeah.
But in the spiritual world, as real as it is, it's totally transcendental, and that's the blueprint.
Yeah.
The spiritual world, where things happen purely, the blueprint in this world, reflection in this world, is completely the wrong thing.
Amazing.
And so that's the thing that's hard for Westerners to understand. Bon Maharaj told me. He said, because he talked to all kinds of scholars when he was in Germany and in England during those years, and they just can't get it. As soon as you start talking about, Radha and the gopis, and they just can't see beyond their preconceived, upbringings. And
well, it's done. It's the very few academics and scholars, I think they came later, like Dimmock and other people, they actually did have an appreciation, but it took generations for that to come to Westerners. It's
an appreciation for Westerners that, okay, I can understand that this is beyond my pay grade, as they say, and I can respect it for that. But that doesn't mean that I understand it.
No.
Or that I recognize it and I accept it, but I don't have that personal feeling myself, because that's something that's you have to cleanse the mirror of the mind to such a degree that you can actually see who you really are.
And that's what
when you see who you when you see who you really are, then there's no more any question of sex life,
So in this ashram environment, the lifestyle, this is part of these, you're 64 different angas of bhakti. You're getting immersed in hearing, chanting, remembering, and so in the Ashtanga yoga system, they're trying to do kind of purify the senses through pranayama and exercises, whereas in the bhakti, it's utilizing your body, your mind, your senses, everything, devoted thinking. And so these levels that we're talking about and you're trying to describe here, they only come about when the mind and the senses are purified through bhakti and sadhana to get to understand, and those levels are revealed to you in that spiritual process.
That's what Rupa Goswami says. He says, Kramena, Rasana, Manasi, Niyojya. It happens gradually, To Nam Rup Charitadi, Sukirtan Anusmrityo, Kramena, step by step, gradually, Rasana, the tongue, Manasi, the mind, Niyojya are merged together, in that sentiment. Tistan Braje, and in that situation you can reside eternally in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, in the consciousness, in the realm of the consciousness. where there is no dirty Ganges or Yamuna. There is no, anything like that. And Tistan Braj, Tad Anuragi. Anuragis are the great devotees. Anuragi Jan, the great devotees, Anugami, following in their footsteps. And so they're sitting under a tree and they're chanting, but what are they thinking about? They're serving Krishna. How do you serve Krishna when you're sitting in one place? Because you don't use your body. Yeah. And so I have an experience one time, when I went with Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj in 669 to Govardhan, he wanted to go with me. We went together. So first of all, we went for 2 weeks. We went to Nandagam and Varshana, and I'm just traveling with him. And then we went to Radhakund, and when we got to Radhakund, we got down before crossing the hill, and walked over to Radhakund and spent the night. The next morning, we got up early and we took our bath, and then we walked around the Govardhan, 14 miles. And on the way, he picked a, Ban Maharaj had told him. I asked Ban Maharaj, "Can I get a stone? Do puja?" So he told Babaji Maharaj to get me one. He said, "I can't take it." So Babaji Maharaj picked up a little stone for me, a little Govardhan stone, and gave it to me. Okay, put it in my pocket, took it back. We didn't have a pocket. I just wrapped it in a cloth and took it back with me. And Ban Maharaj told me how to do the puja. And Gopesh Prabhu, who's now the guru, told me how to do the puja.
Okay.
And so I was in this little room with no furniture, nothing, little hole in the wall, and I had a little puja set up there. And every day I would do the puja and bathe the Govardhan Shila, and put oil on it and sandalwood and grind the sandalwood. And I would do all this, in the room. And so one time I got really sick. I got amoebic dysentery. And it was really bad. Amoebic dysentery, it'll kill you. It'll kill you in 24 hours. And it's like really bad, amoebic dysentery. And getting that repeatedly is how I got colitis.
Okay.
They got germs in Vrindavan. You don't even need a microscope to see them. You don't catch them, they catch you. What are you running from? I'm being chased by some germ. And so I had to go to the hospital, Ramakrishna Mission.
Yeah, I know it.
And so in the hospital, Ban Maharaj told me, just do your puja in your mind. And so I would, I couldn't even take a bath because, so early morning I wake up and I would wash my mouth out and wash my hands, and I would lay down on the bed on my back because I was in the hospital. And mentally, I would slowly picture all the ingredients and slowly collect flowers, and I would have all the ingredients laid out, and I'd have the deity there, and then I'd step by step go through exactly what I did in my body, what I would do in my body. I would just picture myself doing that in my mind. And bathe the deity, and then every single thing, every single step. Then I would even clean the things off, and even take some prasad and some charnamrita, all in my mind. And after it was over, it would be about 9 o'clock in the morning, and these Ramakrishna Mission sannyasis knew that I was doing that, and so it took a couple of hours.
Wow,
and
a couple of hours.
So then I did that for about a week in there, and that was I was able to feel that I've totally done the puja. Even I'm just laying in this bed, I've totally done the puja, and I started to get a feel for what manasa seva means, what it means to serve mentally.
Amazing.
And how it's actually even superior.
Yeah.
How it's even superior. And so because there's nothing just in the way of your consciousness.
Yeah.
It's just your consciousness only,
Wow.
And so a conscious flower is a million times better than a physical flower, And so
interesting.
when I went back to the ashram, I started doing the puja again. One day I was in there because I used to offer the food after the puja. I put a little piece of something on, like a halwa or something on there, and then I would chant my rounds. I would sit there and I would chant 16 rounds while I was offering the food. So in the middle of one day when I was doing that, all of a sudden I heard some commotion, and I looked up, and there was a monkey came in and knocked everything on the floor and ran out. And so there's the Govardhan Shila on the floor. I was horrified. So I went up to Ban Maharaj and I took it out. I said, "Look what happened." He said you should put it immediately in the temple, and that's it. No more Govardhan puja for you. So I gave that. Okay. I'm sure it's probably still there.
Okay.
So I gave that Govardhan Shila to Gopesh Prabhu, who was the pujari then, and didn't do it anymore. But I mean, that was that experience I had in the hospital, especially being able to do that Manasa Sheva.
Yeah.
Just by remembering all the steps I'd been through and having a complete focus on doing those without any distractions of some other thought. Because for me, there was like no other thing to think about. Outside of Brindavan, it was just the world was on fire, and my destiny was horrible, and I didn't have any alternatives. And this was I didn't even want any alternatives. The goal of the spiritual life in any case was to go back to Godhead. So who needs an alternative?
How did your health? Was your God? I mean, just yesterday you were mentioning like begging and getting these vajra that rotis and then with water from a pond, and that was your food. I mean, for a Westerner I did a thing. I traveled down the Ganga for 7 days drinking Ganga Jal, and when I tell people that, they go, "Oh my God!" But I did weird things, and somehow or other I didn't get sick. But you, at that time, so. It's amazing. You're 77 now, and you look in really good shape. And a lot of people, they go, "Wow, he's 67. He doesn't look it at all." So even though you had these health issues, and it was very challenging there, you somehow got through it all. And now let's talk a little bit about.
I went through a lot of trials. It was like years of that.
Yeah.
At one point, they wanted to remove my colon.
Oh, goodness.
In Brindavan, the Dr. Gopal, he wanted to remove my colon. He said, "We have this procedure. We take your colon out because it's all." They looked inside my colon. They used one, I guess, maybe the prototypical, colon viewer. They stuck this tube up my butt. I mean, in the hallway. It wasn't even a room. And there's people there and everything, and I'm there cramming this thing up my butt and seeing all this colitis and saying, "Oh my God, it's ruined. Your colon is really we have to remove it and put a plastic bag on there." And I haven't heard any of this stuff, But at the same time, I was thinking, my life is such a mess. I don't know how I got so screwed up, and here I am in the spiritual world. And this is a good opportunity just to get out of it. Let me just die here, So I told the doctor I don't want to do that. I'm happy to die here. I'd rather die here than have that plastic bag on and be, I don't want to live like that. He said, "Well, so let me talk to my dad about it." His father lived in Agra, and his father was a homeopathic doctor. His father was a Ayurvedic doctor, and he himself was a medical doctor, Dr. Gopal. So he told me he's talked to his doctor, his father, and his father had an idea, and this is what we did. Because I was good, they're going to have to take my colon out. It had lost all its shape. He showed me an X-ray, barium enema X-ray. With how the colon is shaped like this. How it has sacculations. The colon, so it just becomes straight.
Sure.
So he said it's just ruined. So you got to remove it. So anyway, I didn't want to do it. So his father came up with an idea, and what it involved was me being on a slant board, my head down. And he took, I swear to God, this is what I've even told doctors this. He took Mexiform, which is some kind of intestinal antiseptic back then, something called Mexiform. And he ground up a bunch of it and powdered it in a mortar and pestle. And then he got a bunch of cortisone and mixed that in there. And then he mixed all that together in distilled water and yogurt. Fresh yogurt, and then he drained it all through a cheesecloth into a big, and then he had me hold that as a retention enema on a backwards and reclining board. And this is all happening in the funkiest surrounding.
Yeah. I
mean, even the Ramakrishna Mission. I mean, it's like, in those days it was definitely not a luxury hospital. No. Especially, what do you want for nothing? It was free, and so I'm in there, and he did it, and then he had me do it the next. It was really hard. I had to hold it for like a half an hour. And then next day they did it again, and next day they did it again. And then after that, I was basically past that danger.
Wow.
Because then they did a barium enema after the third one. And he said, your colon has come back into that shape again.
Incredible. That's amazing.
So I've told doctors, I said, this is what they did. They used Mexiform, cortisone, and yogurt and distilled water.
Amazing.
And so I was past the point where they're going to have to remove my colon, but I still had digestive problems. Oh my God! Because there was nothing to in the Bhajan Kutir, there's nothing to eat until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Nothing. There's no breakfast, and there's no bottled water in the whole of India.
Yeah, it hasn't.
There's no such thing,
No.
And even the doctors were telling me. I remember one time the Dr. Gopal told me, "Okay, now we've got this But you need to take some yogurt every day. I said, what do you mean yogurt? I live in this ashram where everybody's penniless. Who's got yogurt? No, he wrote a letter. Here's a letter to your guru. You need to get some yogurt. So Ban Maharaj instructed his disciples, 25 paisa he gave them. 25 paisa. Get me some yogurt, every day. And so he gave it to me. Go get some yogurt. So I went to the market, got a little, leaf with some yogurt in it and brought it back. And I was sitting down there with those guys and they're all eating their little sabji rice on the leaf plate. And I had my yogurt. And I felt so stupid that was it. I just didn't do it anymore. They're looking at me, what's your problem, man? You got this yogurt here? What else have we got? Some sweet rice? I mean, they weren't really giving me a hard time, but I was giving myself a hard time.
Matura's Nandana.